When debating the most fearsome characters within anime, two names are constantly mentioned. These of course are Sosuke Aizen and Uchiha Itachi. In terms of a matchup, this isn't just another versus battle, it's actually a battle between two of the most well-written antagonists who had well-established goals and motives, which we learn about over the course of their story. Aizen had become a transcendent being, achieving a godly level of power by the end of the Fate Karakura Town arc. On the other hand, you have Itachi's legendary Genjutsu abilities, which were demonstrated during his final battle against Sasuke. I'm here to tell you that this analysis is going to dive deeper than simply comparing their raw power. I'll be breaking down every layer of these characters' abilities, their differing ideologies when it comes to the battlefield, and their own respective individual journeys of growth, like Aizen's evolution through the Hogyoku in comparison to the true extent of Itachi's Susanoo, which is equipped with the Yata Mirror and the Sword of Totsuka. I'm really looking forward to seeing how these two masters of illusion and deception would interact on a battlefield, as I'll be breaking down obscure feats like how Aizen's Reiatsu is able to disintegrate beings who come near him after he is transformed via the Hogyoku, or how Itachi was able to break free of Kabuto's control through sheer force of will during the 4th Great Ninja War. Be sure to stick around until the very end of the video, as I'll be going over Itachi and Aizen's ultimate abilities, and from all of the different aspects that I'll be studying from these characters, I'll determine which of these characters will win in a 1-to-1 fight. We got really tired of the same old boring anime shirts, so we decided to launch Getsuga.com with the aim of creating designs inspired by our favorite anime and manga. We came up with designs that look cool and represent all of our favorite stories. Check out the latest Instinct collection, which features some amazing designs like this Frosted Heavens design inspired by Toshiro Hitsugaya, or this Instinct design inspired by Hollow Ichigo, and my personal favorite, which is the Heart design, which was inspired by Ukiura Shifa. Do not miss out, go to Getsuga.com and wear your favorite stories. Before getting into the specifics of each of the characters, let's set some ground rules. The battlefield for these two needs to be a vast, desolate realm, which would be able to handle the devastating power of Aizen and Itachi. Think along the lines of Hueco Mundo's endless deserts or the infinite void of Muken. This is an area where both combatants can unleash their full potential without holding back. For the purposes of this video, I want to examine both characters at the absolute peak of their power. So we're looking at Aizen as he appears during the 1000-Year Blood War arc. This is after he has completely fused with the Hogyoku during the events of the Fate Karakura Town arc. At this point, he has transcended beyond an ordinary shinigami or a hollow. In terms of Itachi, we'll be analysing his Edo Tensei form from the 4th Great Ninja War. This is where he was free from the limits of his illness, and he could demonstrate his true capabilities with unlimited chakra. Now let's address some crucial restrictions. The Hogyoku's evolution will be limited to what we have witnessed during Aizen's battle with Ichigo, so we're not dealing with theoretical infinite evolution here. In terms of Itachi, techniques like Izanami, which require specific setup conditions, won't be factored in as they fall outside of the scope of a direct fight. The basis of this matchup is going to be focusing on the feats which have clearly been demonstrated and proven within the manga, and not just fan speculation and headcanon. Victory can only be achieved through complete incapacitation or death. A victory cannot be determined with a simple knockout, given that both Itachi and Aizen have their own respective high durability and regenerative abilities. Both of them will have full knowledge of each other's capabilities, making this a pure battle of skill and power rather than an information warfare. So with the ground rules set, let's go over the character profiles of each of them and see how they measure up against one another. To understand the scope of Aizen's power, let's first appreciate just how thoroughly he had dominated the story of Bleach. This is an individual who had planned and schemed for over 100 years from the shadows, as he had manipulated everyone from the Gote 13 to the Central 46, all while maintaining this facade of being a gentle, scholarly captain. Now don't let Aizen's calm demeanor fool you, because Aizen is possibly the most devastatingly powerful character in Bleach. In terms of feats, Aizen's accomplishments are nothing short of extraordinary. Even before his transformation, he was powerful enough to effortlessly defeat multiple captain-level shinigami all at the same time. I'm talking about him casually cutting down Komamura's Bankai, overwhelming both Shunsui and Ukitake, and defeating defeating 4 captains and 4 vizards in mere moments. His insane amount of Reiatsu alone was enough to make the 6th ranking Espada Grimmjow collapse under its weight. Remember, this is Aizen who wasn't even trying here, and he admitted that he was holding back significantly during some of these encounters. But after Aizen had fused with the Hogyoku, this is where he truly transcends comprehension. He had evolved to a level where individuals like Isshin, Urahara, and Yoruichi, all who are legendary powerhouses in their own right, they were unable to even land a meaningful blow against him. His Reiatsu became so overwhelming that it could disintegrate normal souls just by being in his presence. Even Head Captain Yamamoto, who wields the strongest and oldest fire-type Zanpakuto, needed to be countered with a specific modified Arrancar because Aizen recognized his raw power was too much for him to handle directly, thus demonstrating just how well he is prepared as he goes into every battle with a solid strategy. Aizen's signature abilities stem from his Zanpakuto Kyokasui Getsu, which induces perfect hypnosis. This power is absolute as it had even worked on Yhwach's ability the Almighty, which is a power that allows the Quincy leader to see all possible futures, and to bring his desired future into the present. Think about this for a moment. Aizen's illusions could deceive a being who could literally see every possible timeline. The Hogyoku granted him seemingly limitless evolution and regeneration to the point where Urahara had to create a special Kido just to seal him away because killing him had become impossible. His mastery of Kido is also unparalleled as he's able to cast level 90 spells without incantation, and his tactical genius had allowed him to outmaneuver the entire Soul Society for over a century. What makes Aizen really dangerous is how his abilities perfectly complement one another. His intellect lets him maximize the effectiveness of his powers, while his overwhelming Reiatsu means that he can brute force his way through most opposition if his most subtle approaches fail. Even after Aizen was sentenced to be imprisoned within Muken, and we learned that while he was in Muken for 2 years, he had grown even stronger than when he had fought against Ichigo. His Reiatsu had continued to increase to the point that Mayuri had created a specific chair which was able to contain all of Aizen's Reiatsu by limiting the amount that he was able to release. It was thanks to Aizen's overwhelming power that he had proved to be a crucial ally during the events of the 1000-year Blood War arc, as he had massively helped during the final battle against Yhwach. The question here isn't whether if Aizen is powerful, it's whether if there is any limit to his power at all. When you have a character that is at the level of a god, you gradually begin to reach that point where you have transcended traditional power scaling entirely. Moving on to Uchiha Itachi, his story stands out as one of the most tragic but fascinating character arcs in Naruto. He was born into the Uchiha clan and he was a prodigy who had ascended to the rank of Anbu captain at just 12 years old. However, his rise to greatness was overshadowed by the devastating responsibility that was placed upon him. In order to prevent a catastrophic civil war that could have destabilized the ninja world, Itachi agreed to do an unthinkable mission. This was the annihilation of his own clan. His decision, while it is incomprehensible to most, was driven by a desire to protect the Hidden Leaf Village and his younger brother Sasuke. In the aftermath, he had joined the Akatsuki as a double agent, continuing to safeguard his village from the shadows while shouldering the blame for his clan's massacre. Itachi's motivations are hidden within layers of secrecy which were only revealed following his death. Itachi was a selfless hero who had sacrificed everything to preserve peace and his brother's future. Despite Itachi's terminal illness, his feats had solidified his legacy as one of Konoha's greatest shinobi. His exceptional skill in combat had allowed him to defeat S-class threats like Orochimaru with ease, showcasing his unparalleled skill and strategic ability. During his final battle with Sasuke, Itachi demonstrated not only his immense strength, but also his meticulous planning. He had planned this battle in order to rid Sasuke of Orochimaru's influence while embedding a failsafe within Sasuke's Sharingan in order to protect the Hidden Leaf Village. Itachi's ability to manipulate events extends beyond his death, ensuring his actions would shield the village and guide Sasuke on a path of growth. Itachi was also able to subdue Kakashi, Asuma, and Kurenai in a single encounter while holding back to avoid unnecessarily harming them. Even with limited chakra reserves due to his illness, Itachi's precision and adaptability had made him a near unbeatable opponent in Naruto. His influence was so profound that characters like Orochimaru, who were known for their power and cunning, openly acknowledged his superiority. authority. There are genuinely very few shinobi who could match Itachi's balance of intelligence, strength, and foresight. Itachi has a mastery over the Sharingan which has granted him exceptional perception and capabilities with Genjutsu. His Mangekyo Sharingan abilities elevated him further, enabling him to wield Tsukuyomi, a technique which is able to manipulate time and space within the mind, inflicting immense psychological damage within mere seconds. The inextinguishable black flames of Amaterasu was another one of his deadly tools, capable of consuming any target which it had touched. The absolute peak of Itachi's power was his Susanoo, an ethereal warrior which wielded the Yata mirror capable of nullifying any attack, and the sword of Totsuka which could seal opponents in an eternal illusion. This combination rendered Itachi's Susanoo nearly invincible, a weapon which is equally balanced in both offense and defense. Itachi's combat style emphasized efficiency and psychological warfare. He used Genjutsu to disorientate and incapacitate his opponents, often ending battles before they had even started. His strategic brilliance, coupled with his devastating abilities, made him an individual who could outmaneuver even the most strongest of opponents. In a battle against Aizen, Itachi's intellect, precision, and his unwavering resolve would absolutely be his most greatest assets. Both Aizen and Itachi are fundamentally different in their approaches to power. At their core, these differences stem from their respective energy systems. Aizen relies on Reiatsu while Itachi relies on chakra. Aizen's Reiatsu manifests as an overwhelming spiritual pressure which literally warps reality around him, capable of dissolving lesser beings by mere proximity and bringing captain-level threats to their knees, as demonstrated when he casually paralyzed Grimmjow with his presence alone. In contrast, Itachi's mastery of chakra reflects the philosophy of efficiency and precision which has defined his life as a shinobi. We see this in his ability to weave complex jutsu with minimal hand signs and maintain multiple techniques at the same time without wasting energy. The depth of both of their illusion-based abilities demonstrates a fascinating contrast between them. Aizen's Kyokasui Getsu represents the peak of sensory manipulation, as his complete hypnosis has proven to be capable of overwhelming Yhwach's almighty precognitive abilities which could foresee the future. What makes Kyokasui Getsu particularly devastating is its subtlety. Victims remain unaware that they are under its influence even after multiple exposures, as demonstrated during Aizen's 100-year-long deception of the entire Gotei 13. Itachi's mastery of Genjutsu, however, manifests very differently, as he utilizes techniques like ephemeral to inflict psychological trauma without eye contact, or his Crow Genjutsu, which can activate autonomously based on specific triggers, showcasing that he has a bit more of a tactical application when it comes to his illusions. Aizen's abilities tend towards exponential growth and cosmic scale, evidenced by his ability to evolve beyond conventional dimensions of power via the Hogyoku, while Itachi's techniques emphasize precision and finality. His mastery extends beyond the obvious Sharingan abilities to include perfect chakra control, which allows him to maintain techniques like Susanoo while severely ill. And he also possesses the ability to cast multiple layers of Genjutsu at the same time, as seen during his final battle with Sasuke. The true brilliance of both Aizen and Itachi's abilities lie in their application rather than their raw power. Aizen's control over his Reiatsu is so precise that he can selectively allow others to sense his presence, like he had done during the Turn Back the Pendulum arc when he had used Kyokasui Getsu to convince several shinigami that he was within the Serite, when in fact he was out conducting holification experiments, demonstrating that Aizen uses Kyokasui Getsu both as a weapon and a tool for psychological warfare. Similarly, Itachi's expert chakra control allows him to perform feats like creating shadow clones which explode or transform into flocks of crows mid-combat. These nuanced applications of their respective powers demonstrates that both Aizen and Itachi are peerless prodigies within their respective universes. Now, moving on to their physical combat, instead of relying relying on traditional shinigami might, Aizen's raw power manifests in ways that defy comprehension. In his early demonstrations of power, Aizen had casually shattered Komamura's Bankai with a single strike, a feat which was made even more impressive considering Bankai typically multiplies the power of a shinigami by 5 to 10 times. Aizen's evolution via the Hogyoku had gradually elevated his strength to cosmic levels. This was shown when his mere presence had started to literally warp the fabric of reality around him. This was most revealing during his confrontation with Gin Ichimaru, where Aizen's physical strikes could shatter defensive Kido barriers that even captain level techniques were unable to penetrate. While Itachi's strength on the other hand is more understated, it does reflect his mastery over forced application rather than brute force power. From his early days in the Anbu, Itachi demonstrated the ability to shatter boulders with precisely channeled chakra strikes. His effective use of movement allows him to generate devastating impact with minimal exertion, exemplified when he effortlessly dispatched 3 members of the Konoha military police force at age 11 using nothing but taijutsu. What makes Itachi's strength truly remarkable is his power to match opponents far physically stronger than himself through perfect chakra control and timing. In terms of speed, very few are able to comprehend or let alone match Aizen's speed after he becomes transcendent. Beyond mere Shumpo mastery, Aizen demonstrates the ability to outmaneuver Yoruichi herself, who is considered to be the greatest speed specialist within the history of the Soul Society. Aizen's movements become so swift that they outmaneuver several captain level shinigami who are unable to track him. Most impressively, Aizen showcased the ability to process and react to events happening at multiple locations simultaneously, as seen when he orchestrated the fall of the Central 46. Itachi's speed operates on an entirely different paradigm. His hand seal speed surpassed Sharingan tracking capabilities even in his youth, shown when he became the fastest graduate in the history of the academy. The true genius of Itachi's speed lies in both its prediction and efficiency. Itachi doesn't just move fast, he moves with purpose. This was highlighted in his battle with Killer Bee, where he could seamlessly counter the 8 sword style despite Killer Bee's superior physical speed. His mastery of the body flicker technique allowed him to create after images that even other Sharingan users couldn't distinguish from his real movements. Aizen's combat techniques rely upon his own unique style, which has seamlessly blended Hakuda, Zanjutsu, and Kido into fluid combinations. This was demonstrated when he simultaneously engaged multiple captain level opponents using different combat styles, countering Soifon's assassin techniques while parrying Shunsui's dual blade style, all while maintaining perfect form. Aizen's ability to adapt his fighting style mid-battle makes conventional counters nearly impossible. Itachi's mastery over his techniques represents the peak of shinobi combat integration. He has unparalleled weapon control demonstrated by his signature ability to launch kunai to deflect other kunai mid-fight and hitting targets in blind spots. More impressively, Itachi can weave Genjutsu through pure hand movement, as shown when he trapped opponents without using hand seals or even eye contact. As you're beginning to understand, in terms of Itachi, every single movement serves a purpose, and some of his movements in respect to his techniques serve multiple purposes. He can use a defensive block which becomes a Genjutsu setup while simultaneously positioning for a counterattack. His layered approach to combat technique makes every battle with Itachi a deadly puzzle. Let's now consider their intelligence and strategy. Both Itachi and Aizen are treated as strategists who excel at reading combat situations. Their approaches stem from fundamentally different philosophies, however. Aizen's tactical genius manifests through absolute dominance, which is demonstrated when he had orchestrated a scenario which had forced multiple captain-level shinigami to attack illusions of himself while he methodically tore apart their battle formation. Aizen is able to simultaneously counter unique abilities from the likes of Yoruichi, Urahara, and Isshin, who he had all fought at the same time. He was able to analyze and exploit their specific weaknesses, and he was quickly able to assess their combined attack patterns. And he had done this earlier when Shunsui, Hitsugaya, and Soifon had also tried to attack him at the same time. Itachi's combat analysis operates on multiple concurrent layers. During his battle with Killer Bee, he not only countered the unpredictable 8 sword style through precise movement prediction, but he also at the same time gathered intelligence on the 8 Tails capabilities while testing the limits of Edo Tensei control. His ability to process multiple combat variables was showcased when he protected Sasuke from Kabuto's attacks while setting up the conditions for Izanami, all while maintaining an elaborate Genjutsu screen. So both of them are incredible tacticians who can think through any battle scenario. Aizen's preparation exceeds conventional planning as he treats entire conflicts as experiments to gather data. His creation of Wonder Wise wasn't just about countering the flames of Yamamoto, but a part of his analysis of the limits of holification. Aizen's plans adapt dynamically, shown when he seamlessly incorporates unexpected factors like Ichigo's potential for growth into his broader schemes. And during battle, he often taunts his opponents into making rash decisions, which ultimately costs them as he easily exploits their openings. Itachi's preparation style revolves around creating interlocking contingencies, like planting crows within the body of his targets. Itachi demonstrated this during his time as a double agent, maintaining deep cover in the Akatsuki while secretly relaying information back to the Hidden Leaf Village. And all at the same time, he was positioning several pieces for the future growth of Sasuke. His talent for improvisation was demonstrated when he broke free of the control of Kabuto, as instead of following his orders, he turns this resurrection into an opportunity to protect the Hidden Leaf Village. In terms of combat experience, Aizen's is unique even among the other Shinigami captains. Rather than just building up his arsenal of techniques, Aizen had systematically broken down every form of combat within Bleach. From analyzing the fundamental nature of Zanpakuto releases to understanding and mastering the principles behind Kido. His battle against other transcendent beings like Dangai Ichigo or Yhwach demonstrated his ability to weaponize the knowledge that he has, as he is able to excellently exploit his opponents and to bring out their weaknesses, which is what he had done at the end of the 1000-Year Blood War arc when he had used Kyoka against Yhwach, tricking him into thinking that he was attacking Ichigo and Renji when in fact he was attacking Aizen. Itachi was a prodigy who mastered academy techniques within months. He rapidly accumulated S-rank mission experience that seasoned veterans would require decades to match. His experience within the Anbu provided mastery of assassination, infiltration, and battlefield control techniques. Most impressively, Itachi maintained his tactical edge even while he was terminally ill, developing techniques to maximize efficiency and to minimize his energy expenditure, as these abilities would become legendary amongst later generations of shinobi. Let's now go over their durability and stamina. Aizen's durability is elevated after his fusion with the Hogyoku. His immortality isn't just about regeneration, because during his battle against Yhwach, it is implied that Aizen demonstrated the power to reconstitute himself even after being completely engulfed in darkness, which has the power to erase anything it touches. When Aizen was imprisoned within Muken, Mayuri acknowledged that no executioner within the Soul Society could permanently end the life of Aizen. Even more impressively, during the 1000-Year Blood War arc, Aizen had attacked himself and the chair that he was bound on with a blast of his own Kurohitsugi. This is a spell capable of warping space and time itself. Following the attack, both Aizen and the chair showed no signs of damage. In terms of Itachi, during his time in the Anbu, he developed such precise chakra control that he could reinforce his body to withstand impacts that would shatter boulders. His mastery of the Susanoo had allowed him to maintain its form even while nearly blind and coughing blood. This demonstrates his extraordinary pain tolerance, and during the Fourth Great Ninja War, his reanimated form was shown to regenerate from any damage while retaining perfect battle awareness, thus allowing Itachi to execute complex strategies even while being repeatedly dismembered by Kabuto's attacks. Aizen's stamina is unprecedented as he has an untapped reserve of Reiatsu, allowing him to cast high-level Kido spells simultaneously while he is still bound in restraints. During the battle against Yhwach, Aizen demonstrated the power to layer complex illusions even after being impaled multiple times, showing no signs of fatigue despite engaging with a godlike being. His Reiatsu reserves were so vast that they helped maintain the seal on Hell itself. As we learn during the No Breeds from Hell one-shot chapter, Zyle Aparo states that the tremendous Reiatsu which was keeping the mouth of Hell in check, as he comments on how Aizen had disappeared within Muken and following the defeat of Yhwach. The balance has been disrupted and the gates of Hell are now being forced open from the side of Hell. Aizen's imprisonment and his incredible amounts of Reiatsu have a massive role to play in this. When it comes to Itachi's stamina, he is a tactical genius. As a Anbu captain at the age of 13, he could perform multiple high-level techniques while maintaining perfect chakra efficiency. His crow clones allowed him to conserve energy while gathering intelligence, and he had used several techniques which maximized impact while minimizing chakra cost. Perhaps his most impressive was during his infiltration of Konoha, where he was able to maintain his Mangekyo Sharingan while at the same time participating in the 9 Phantom Dragons sealing technique from a distance. This was a feat which had required precise chakra control over multiple days. Aizen's transcendent durability allows him to tank devastating attacks as he can evolve beyond them. Meanwhile, Itachi's calculated efficiency had allowed him to overcome seemingly insurmountable odds through precise chakra manipulation and tactical foresight. It creates for a really interesting scenario in combat where you have Aizen's overwhelming presence versus Itachi's surgical precision. While Aizen would likely be able to endure any attack, Itachi's expertise at finding and exploiting weaknesses might allow him to turn even limited stamina into decisive advantages. We did see the Sternritter Nanana utilize his ability, the Underbelly, which allowed him to determine the weaknesses within Aizen's Reiatsu. Aizen was a stationary target here, and he didn't even pass out from the attack, and he completely recovered 5 minutes later. This speaks a lot to the incredible stamina and durability that Aizen has. Even if Itachi were to have taken his time and to have found and exploited a weakness, I doubt that it's anything that Aizen would not be able to overcome. Let's now look at each of their ultimate moves. Aizen's ultimate move is his Ultra Fragile, which combines multiple energy spheres into a singular devastating attack. It demonstrates the sheer scale of his abilities post his fusion with the Hogyoku. More impressively is his Hado number 99 Goryu Tenmetsu. This summons 5 energy dragons that not only devastate their targets, but actively absorb and weaponize the surrounding Reiatsu. Even his incantationless Kurohitsugi, while he was bound and tied to Chair-sama, had allowed him to tear open a hole within the protective barrier of the Serete. Beyond raw destructive power, Aizen's ability to layer his illusions on top of these destructive moves makes him a true powerhouse. Itachi's arsenal of abilities represents the peak of the Uchiha clan. His mastery of the Mangekyo Sharingan manifests in techniques which transcend conventional ninjutsu. Beyond the widely known Amaterasu, Itachi demonstrated the ability to program complex contingencies into his techniques, like embedding Amaterasu within Sasuke's eyes to activate against specific targets. His Susanoo's legendary weapons aren't just tools, but conceptual armaments. The Yata mirror possesses the unique ability to manifest any nature transformation needed to counter incoming attacks. On the other hand, you have the Totsuka blade, which doesn't simply seal its targets, but it traps them in a dimension of infinite peaceful dreams. Now, in terms of weaknesses, while the Hogyoku grants Aizen tremendous power, it has fundamental limitations. Its evolution responds to desire rather than necessity, meaning Aizen can still be outmaneuvered by opponents who exceed his comprehension of possibility, as demonstrated when he fought against Ichigo and had lost, and then when he ended up being sealed by Urahara's Kido. The Hogyoku's rejection of Aizen during his battle with Ichigo suggests its power isn't absolute, but it's rather conditional and dependent upon the desires of the individual user. Itachi's Edo Tensei form eliminates his physical limitations, but it introduces new constraints. In his Edo Tensei form, there is a chance that he may not be as strong as what he was when he was alive, but the fact that his Edo Tensei rids him of his illness does balance this out. And while he is effectively immortal, he still can be sealed away and is vulnerable to attacks which affect his soul. Also, Itachi's reliance on the visual ability of the Sharingan can be countered by opponents who actually understand the mechanics of how it works. This is seen when Kabuto fought against him while being blindfolded. Even his most powerful techniques require precise timing and positioning to be effective. And then you have the Totsuka blade, which must make direct contact, and his Genjutsu requires specific conditions in order to initiate. So if some of the ultimate abilities of Itachi and Aizen were to clash, it would result in the Yata mirror's ability to adapt to any attack being tested against Aizen's constant evolution thanks to the Hogyoku. It would create a bit of an endless cycle of adaptation and counter-adaptation. Then you have the Totsuka blade's sealing power versus the Hogyoku's regeneration ability, as it presents a interesting conceptual clash, because would a weapon which is able to seal on a split spiritual level, be able to overcome Aizen, who has transcended to the level of a god. Itachi's analytical precision and Aizen's reality warping power would create scenarios where multiple layers of illusion and counter-illusion would build on top of each other, turning the battle into a psychological warfare rather than a traditional combat situation. This is if Aizen doesn't just decide to tank Itachi from the onset. I want to dive into some wildcard possibilities. These are unexpected qualities or quirks which could influence the outcome of their battle. What could truly tip the scales between this legendary shinobi and shinigami? What makes Aizen uniquely dangerous is not just the way that he manipulates others, but it's his fundamental isolation. From childhood, it was Aizen's intellect which had set him apart, creating a perspective where he had started to view others as pieces of his plan rather than his peers. This isolation manifests in combat through his tendency to fight on his own and not rely on others. This is even when he is surrounded with underlings. During the Battle of Fake Karakura Town arc, he deliberately held back information from Gin and Tozen about his true capabilities, viewing them as tools to his plan rather than as actual comrades. Aizen's self-reliance is both his strength and his weakness. While it had allowed him to transcend normal limits by fusing with the Hogyoku, it was ultimately Aizen's constant evolution through the Hogyoku which had reflected his deepest desire to find an equal, someone who is capable of understanding him. This unconscious longing could be exploited by an opponent who truly comprehends the burden of isolation, as they may be able to disrupt the Hogyoku's evolutionary influence on Aizen. This is part of the reason why Aizen had started to de-evolve during his battle against Ichigo. Itachi's most overlooked advantage lies in his mastery of information control. His time within the Anbu had honed an ability to feed enemies exactly the information that they expect to hear or see, thus creating blind spots in their perception. During his infiltration of the Akatsuki, he manipulated even Kisame's understanding of his capabilities while gathering intelligence on the organization. His ability to control what others believe that they know about him creates opportunities for devastating tactical surprises. Additionally, Itachi's emotional intelligence extends beyond simple empathy. His ability to understand and exploit others' mental states was refined through years of maintaining his cover as a rogue ninja. In his battle with Kabuto, Itachi demonstrated how his understanding allows him to turn an opponent's psychological defenses against them, using their own emotional barriers as weapons. The true wildcard within this matchup lies within how these two fighters have a different psychological approach to power. Aizen's pursuit of transcendence makes him particularly vulnerable to opponents who understand the weight of power, as seen in his confrontation with Ichigo, where his inability to comprehend someone surpassing him becomes his undoing. Similarly, his battle against Yobak revealed how his reliance on intellectual superiority may be able to be turned against him by someone who operates outside of his framework of understanding. Contrastingly, Itachi treats power as a burden rather than a goal, giving him a unique insight into the psychology of transcendent beings. His experiences of maintaining peace through the threat of power rather than the use of power may prove crucial against someone like Aizen, who actively seeks to demonstrate superiority. The fact that Itachi was able to successfully manipulate multiple power structures like the Hidden Leaf Village, the Akatsuki, and even his own Uchiha clan suggests that he has a deep-rooted understanding of manipulation, as well as an understanding of the flaws of humanity. This clash would ultimately test not just their abilities, but their fundamentally opposing philosophies about the nature of power itself. This is Aizen's transcendence versus Itachi's burden. It's isolation versus connection. In a battle made up of a psychological warfare, traditional power scaling does become secondary to their ability to understand and exploit each other's core motivations. I want to now share my final verdict on several different points, revealing who the victor would be between Itachi and Aizen for that respective category. First, we have combat dynamics. Aizen's power to shatter dimensional barriers and continuously evolve through the Hogyoku makes him an unprecedented threat. The raw destructive potential of his Reiatsu, which is capable of crushing captain-level opponents by proximity alone, creates an overwhelming pressure which very few would be able to withstand. Meanwhile, Itachi's combat efficiency represents the peak of shinobi warfare. His ability to end conflicts with minimal movement and maximum impact as demonstrated when he had disabled entire ambush squads without casualties, shows a level of control that Aizen might respect. If you watched all of this video, then you'll know that the answer is pretty obvious with this category. Aizen is clearly the winner in terms of combat dynamics. With tactical mastery, both excel at manipulation, as their approaches reveal fascinating contrasts. Aizen's decades of planning had allowed him to orchestrate plans on an unfathomable scale, like manipulating the Soul Society's entire power structure through careful information control. However, Itachi's surgical precision in battle planning, which was shown in feats like programming complex contingencies into crow clones, as well as manipulating Kabuto's seemingly perfect Edo Tensei, demonstrates a more adaptable tactical mind. Itachi's ability to layer multiple objectives into single actions gives him a crucial edge in a direct combat scenario with Aizen. So I think out of the two of them, when it comes to a battlefield setting, I believe that Itachi may just slightly edge over Aizen when it comes to his tactical ability. In terms of their ultimate abilities, Aizen's Fragor and Kyoka-Suigetsu's perfect hypnosis allow him to dominate opponents both physically and psychologically. Combined with his regenerative ability and his immortality, it makes Aizen nearly unstoppable. Itachi Susanoo, equipped with the Yata Mirror and the Totsuka Blade, is a perfect balance of offense and defense, capable of sealing even the most powerful of opponents. However, Aizen's overwhelming Reiatsu and the scale of his abilities make his ultimate techniques more devastating in a prolonged fight. So predictably, Aizen does beat Itachi here. Even in other stats like strength and stamina and durability, Aizen would trump Itachi easily. This once again is all attributed to his fusion with the Hogyoku, which allows him to tap into a bottomless supply of Reiatsu versus Itachi's limited supply of chakra. In terms of the wildcard category, this may be a decisive factor in some of their battle scenarios, because Aizen's feelings of loneliness are ultimately a weakness which could be exploited by Itachi, and because of his feelings of superiority, he refuses to accept defeat. But in contrast to Itachi, who is used to fighting with constraints due to his illness while he was alive, and due to Itachi's willingness to accept defeat and to sacrifice himself, offers him a psychological edge above Aizen, which may prove to be the deciding factor in some battle situations. So in terms of the wildcard possibility, Itachi definitely has the win over Aizen. But again, wildcards are very rare, and in most scenarios, Aizen's sheer scale of power and his limitless evolution would secure victory through his overwhelming force. However, under very rare specific conditions where Itachi would be able to exploit Aizen's psychological vulnerabilities, if you were to combine this psychological warfare with the use of the Totsuka Blade's sealing capabilities, as well as his carefully layered illusions, he may be able to counter Kyoka-Suigetsu and seal Aizen in a similar way to how Urahara was able to seal Aizen at the end of the Fate Karakura Town arc. Well, there you have it. That was my complete breakdown of Aizen versus Itachi. Aizen represents the peak of transcendent power, evolving beyond mortal limits, while Itachi demonstrates true strength often lies in knowing exactly when and how to apply force. While the victor and the entire premise of this fight is very predictable, I still find it very fascinating to match up two characters who have a few key similarities in their traits as well as their powers that they use. Both Itachi and Aizen had manipulated certain situations from the shadows. Aizen's true intentions were to take the throne of God for himself, while Itachi had sacrificed his own life and his reputation for the sake of protecting his village. So we have reached the point of the video where I want to hand over the discussion to all of you. Do you guys agree with me that Aizen would definitely win this matchup in most scenarios? Or is there something that I've forgotten to mention about Itachi which could make all the difference in a fight against Aizen? Do continue the discussion in the comments, and if you want to see other power scaling matchup videos, then let me know your suggestions in the comments. And lastly, thank you for making it to the end of this video, and I cannot wait to see you in my next power scaling video. A massive thank you goes out to all of my amazing Patreon supporters for helping to make this video possible. If you also want to support the channel and see your name in the end of my videos, then check out my Patreon, which has loads of perks like early video access and so much more. Thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.